This is CBN NewsWatch.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm George Thomas. Today is Friday, September 5th, and we begin with news from the Middle East. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee describes Israel's war in Gaza as a battle between heaven and hell. And he tells CBN News that countries who are supporting the creation of a Palestinian state are only helping Hamas. Those statements come as Israel says it's made great progress against the terror group. My colleague Paul Petit has more on our top story.
The IDF says it now controls up to 40% of Gaza City even before its main offensive. The battle is key to destroying the last remaining Hamas stronghold in the Gaza Strip. All this as a pivotal United Nations meeting is about to take place. We sat down with Mike Huckabee, United States Ambassador to Israel.
Ambassador Huckabee, appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you, Paul. Great to have you in Israel.
So as we speak, IDF soldiers are continuing their momentum moving into Gaza. We haven't heard any response regarding the Hamas offer to free the hostages. Is that the right move right now? And if so, why?
It's what the president has been pushing for and saying. It's what Israel has been pushing for. But I don't know that they have much of a choice, because Hamas will walk up to the table and pretend they're going to make some type of deal that would let the hostages go, and then they always walk away, and then they add new conditions. I think people have to understand the reason this has gone on like it has, as long as it has, with as much suffering as it has. It's not because of Israel, it's because of Hamas.
Do you think perhaps Hamas is buying time, knowing that later this month the UN General Assembly will meet? Some countries, UK, as well as Belgium and Canada, will, if they follow through on it, declare a sovereign state?
It could be. I think without a doubt, when these European countries started saying they were going to unilaterally declare a Palestinian state, Hamas walked away from all the negotiations that had been going on. They wanted a Palestinian state. Now they might get one for free.
How does that muddy the waters then, if in fact they're declared a sovereign state? It
was the most insane thing when the European countries did this. First of all, it's a violation of the Oslo Accords. So that's a problem. They can't declare a Palestinian state. They just can't do that. And they also, they haven't defined where the boundaries are, who would lead it, how it would all work out. So it is an exercise in futility.
The president said that Israel has, quote, is not winning the war of public opinion. There's a PR problem going on now in the United States, well, across the globe. How does that get countered? How do you fix that?
It's a challenge for Israel because the monolithic media is so against them. It's partly because the leftist slant of the media. Now, they've got a lot of people complicit with them. United Nations, who puts out whatever they say through the, quote, Gaza Health Ministry, that's Hamas.
If you were the PR consultant for them, what would you tell them?
I'd tell them to get a bunch of social media influencers, because the real problem is with Generation Z.
You know, most people view this as a battle between Hamas and Israel. There's something much deeper going on. How do you see it?
This is a battle of the ages. This is not horizontal. It's not left, right, liberal, conservative. This is a vertical battle. It's heaven versus hell. It's good versus evil. People need to see it in that context or they'll miss the whole thing. Where does that come from? It doesn't come just from socio-political or economic pressures. It comes from an evil that originates from the most demonic forces that have ever been unleashed on this earth. And that's why I feel like particularly Christian believers in the United States and across the world need to recognize it.
Ambassador Huckabee, thanks so much for taking the time for us today.
Paul, thank you. Great to have you here.
Great interview, Paul. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is joining us now from Israel. Chris, Israel, as you know, is fighting on two fronts, the battlefield in Gaza and at the UN this month. What's at stake on these battlefields?
Well, George, on the battlefield in Gaza, militarily, this could be the final battle to defeat Hamas, hopefully free the hostages and prayerfully free the hostages. Up to 40%, as we said in our report, the Gaza City is already under IDF control. And really, it's a battle of the people, George. Many Gazans have fled to safe zones that the IDF is providing. But Hamas, on the other hand, is trying to prevent them because this is a pivotal battle. And as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, it's a decisive stage of the war. The other battlefield, you mentioned the diplomatic front. Some say Israel's facing a diplomatic tsunami with the declaration of a Palestinian state on September 22nd. Second, the consequences, isolating Israel, demonizing Israel, maybe placing sanctions on Israel. And then there's actually a third front, the media battle, George, and Israel really having a hard time, and I would say many people say not winning the media battle right now.
And to that very point, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, wow, they released proof of a young boy some had accused that the IDF had killed, and they found him alive. Tell us about that.
It's a great example of the media battle, George, because for weeks people had been saying, and this former employee of the GHF said that this boy, his name is Abdul Ramin Abud Mohammed Hamdan, that he was killed by the IDF in a whale of bullets. But the whole story was false. After weeks of looking for him, he was found alive. He's alive and well now in a secure location. So as I said, it was a former GHF employee who was fired for misconduct making these accusations. But his story was carried by the mainstream media for weeks. U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee, as Paul was just with, he stated, "I hope the media outlets who ran the story from this discredited fired employee will issue a retraction and apology." We're not sure that's going to happen anytime soon, though.
Yeah. Chris, all of this has led to, in recent weeks, in fact, pretty much months, accusation that Israel is committing acts of genocide in Gaza. What do the experts say about this accusation?
Well, there's one in particular, George. His name is John Spencer. He's a war historian. He just said recently, I think as far early as yesterday, and he's been saying it for a long time, is that it's definitively not a genocide going on in Gaza. He says it's actually the antithesis of a genocide, the opposite of what Israel is actually doing. They're making what he says is historic efforts, as you compare to other battlefields and other wars, to protect civilians and feed an enemy population. The credibility of one of those groups that has accused Israel of committing a genocide, that's been called into question as well. Anybody can join it for $30 to $125 and vote whether or not there's a genocide going on. These kind of create international headlines that actually is run where much of the international media just runs with those accusations.
Yeah, I remember when Jonathan Goff, your producer there in Jerusalem, he and I were in Gaza, you know, the constant drumbeat about how Hamas was using, you know, innocent civilians as human shields, and we saw that firsthand. And then at the same time, you know, Israel would take these painstaking processes, you know, of dropping thousands of leaflets and these small bombs on top of buildings to try to mitigate civilian casualties. Chris, tell us what's coming up on your great show, Jerusalem Dateline, this week.
Yeah, well, George, you did see that firsthand. We have more excerpts from Paul Petit's exclusive interview with Ambassador Mike Huckabee. And also we're talking about the explosion of anti-Semitism throughout Europe, all on today's Jerusalem Dateline.
All right, fantastic. To you, Chris Mitchell, Paul Petit, and the great team in our Jerusalem Bureau, thank you so much for all that you do. Please continue to keep safe, and we will look forward to your analysis in the days ahead. You can see the latest Jerusalem Dateline at 8 p.m. Eastern on the CBN News Channel. You can also watch it on the CBN News app or on YouTube. Now to our nation's capital. Boy, oh boy, a contentious hearing on Capitol Hill as senators grilled Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Kennedy defended his efforts on vaccines and other issues in an often very heated exchange between members of the Senate Finance Committee as the hearing centered on his controversial views on vaccines. My colleague CBN's Michelle London has been tracking this and has the latest. Take a look.
Let's clear this up right now, Secretary Kennedy.
One fiery exchange after another. Senators like Elizabeth Warren demanded answers, pressing Secretary Kennedy on denying pharmacies access to COVID vaccines. And he didn't back down.
We're not going to recommend a product for which there's no clinical data for that indication. Is that what I should be doing?
What you should be doing is honoring your promise that you made when you were looking to get confirmed in this job.
You're going like this.
And that is, you promised that you would not take away vaccines from anyone who wanted them. You just changed the classification of the COVID vaccine.
I'm not taking them away from people, Senator.
During his 6 months on the job, Kennedy has upended his Health and Human Services agency, while critics say the CDC has borne the brunt of his efforts.
You are a hazard to the health of the American people. I think that you ought to resign.
Strong words from Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock in the wake of recent ripple effects throughout his state. In just 1 month, the CDC faced a fatal shooting at its Atlanta headquarters, laid off 600 workers, and lost 5 of its top leaders.
The canceling of mRNA research contracts, firing advisory board members, attempting to stall NIH funding, eliminating funding for the $500 million for further mRNA research, and just want an answer for it.
If we're going to make America healthy again, we can't allow public health to be undermined.
Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming, an orthopedic surgeon, shared deep concerns the cuts to research funding could actually put some vaccines in jeopardy. Still, Kennedy defended his decisions.
Americans have lost faith in CDC, and we need to restore that faith, and we're going to do that by telling the truth.
As the heated 3-hour-long hearing continued, Senator Marsha Blackburn pressed the secretary about keeping rural pharmacies open and combating overprescribing stimulant drugs for children.
There's a lot of reporting out there on this and tremendous concern for grandmamas like me who see children and friends of our grandchildren who suffer with this.
We now have 1 out of every 5 kids on these drugs and the antidepressants, even more. And we know very little about the long-term impacts because NIH and CDC have been asleep at the wheel.
Michelle London, CBN News, Washington.
Thanks, Michelle. Another blood moon is arriving Sunday night. A blood moon is a full lunar eclipse where the moon can appear to be unusually blood red color. Some students of biblical prophecy say blood moons are tied to events that affect Israel. And Sunday's blood moon will be the second in a series of 4 from this year to next. Similar series have often come in the past at key times for Israel, like the 1967 Six-Day War. Coming up, the Trump administration wants to modernize technology to replace you having to write down your medical history. But this could raise some concerns. We'll take a closer look next. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. Welcome back to the broadcast. If you have spent any time in a doctor's office, you are all too familiar with the routine of having to write down your medical history. Well, the Trump administration wants to replace all of that writing with modern technology. Medical reporter Lori Johnson explains the reasons for the move and how it raises concerns about privacy.
President Trump, along with HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Dr. Oz, Administrator for Medicare and Medicaid, touted the plan to simplify sharing health information with any doctor or pharmacy.
Today, the dream of easily transportable electronic medical records finally becomes a reality.
As part of the Making Health Technology Great Again, they appeared alongside CEOs of top tech firms like Google, Amazon, Apple, and OpenAI.
Instead of filling out the same tedious paperwork at every medical appointment, patients will simply be able to grant their doctors access to their records at the push of a button. Just a button and you're all set, and all the information the doctor needs will be immediately transmitted.
Smartphone apps store your complete health history, which would be instantly shared by scanning a QR code.
And it shows your height, your weight, your blood type, your BMI, your cardiac markers, your diabetes markers, your cholesterol, and any kind of individualized treatments they got.
Those in the medical field agree it's time for an upgrade to America's outdated health information sharing system.
I don't always have information from a recent hospital visit. If a patient goes to the emergency room They may not be able to get care started as soon because the providers don't know what they're taking if maybe you come in and you're not conscious. So there are things that we would love to fix.
While these apps would involve voluntary participation from both patients and providers, they would not be linked to any government database.
In addition to storing our health information, the apps would take it a step further by using AI to interpret the data and offer personalized advice about diet, medications, exercise, and more.
Ideally, the apps would lead to improved health, especially for people with diabetes or obesity.
The key is the unlocking of the data, because the more data that AI has, the better it performs.
While this tech sounds good, privacy concerns abound because it's unclear whether security can be guaranteed, something very important when it comes to your personal, sensitive health information.
If this system were to share doctor's notes and you had a certain medication or you had a diagnosis that was more private to you, or you had clinical notes that the doctor had written that would reveal information about your progress, those would be things that most of us wouldn't just be sharing just all over the place.
Worries include insurance companies possibly discovering information and using it to increase your rate or even cancel a policy. So while most Americans would love to ditch the clipboard, privacy concerns could be a deal breaker. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Well, I'm definitely ready to ditch the clipboard. Well, still ahead, we have a first look at the new animated film, Light of the World. Stay with us. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. And welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. A new family faith film hits theaters just in time for the weekend. It's called Light of the World. The 2D animated movie shares the story of Jesus as told through his friend, the Apostle John. It features Jesus' ministry, his crucifixion, and his resurrection. Ephraim Graham sat down with the Light of the World director, John Schaefer, for a deeper look at the animated film.
Your taxes, can you pay them or not?
Yes, of course.
Oh,
no! My son, John, is right here with your money.
3 days, double what you owe. And if you can't pay, we take your father to prison.
I brought someone who can help. This is Jesus.
What gave birth to this particular animation story? Why did you guys decide to do this?
So I work for the Salvation Poem Project, and most people familiar with Superbook have heard the song, but they didn't realize it's a ministry. And I was only there for about 2 months, and Matt McPherson, the founder, and a very good friend to CBN and that, and he talked to Brennan and I, and Brennan is the president of Salvation Poem Project, and he just said, back in the 90s, I really felt like the Lord put on my heart that I'm supposed to make a movie about the life of Jesus. You know, it was actually August 19th, 2021. I remember that day when he had said that. And that's how he says, John, since you're here, your experience with animation, maybe this is the time.
He's helping people. I want to be a part of that. This is my chance to show up.
What was the process like?
It was the most funnest thing I've ever done in my life because it's a dream come true. But it was also the hardest. And you know, when you talk about the technical stuff, the animation, those are hard, and that's part of production. I think the hardest part was the weight of how to tell the story. We felt the responsibility of how to tell this story. And also, you know, it's the most personal stories to people's lives. And also for other people, it could be the most offensive. So finding that balance of telling a story. So when I say we created this movie for everyone, but we wrote it in mind for those who have no concept of the gospel, no concept of Jesus, or maybe a misconception. And that's why we chose to kind of go from a young John character, a coming of age film, kind of like if Disney was to make a movie about the life of Jesus in the 90s, this is that movie. And that's kind of that origin story there.
Talk about that way into telling the story. So we see this young apostle, if you will. What made you go that route?
Well, one of the things that we learned, you know, during our research is that most of the theologian historians believe that the disciples were probably in their upper teenage years, Peter probably in the mid-20s. So we thought, with John being the youngest, and he always calls himself the most beloved. So when I used to read that, I used to think, oh, is he a little kind of arrogant, you know? But we started going to the point of, well, what happens if we make him 13?
Tell me about this Jesus.
And I think because it is that coming of age feel story, like I said, that one just really resonates with any culture.
And what's your prayer for it now?
My biggest prayer is I wanted to make sure we made a movie that when a child watches it from beginning to end, not only do they learn about who God and Savior and Jesus is, but really see a friend. Because that's the whole thing about the relationship. When you watch this movie, it is a relationship between John and Jesus, and you see that develop. And you see the times when John's questioning him, and you know, it's like 1 minute he's all for it, he must be the Messiah. Next minute it's like, man, Jesus, you're saying some weird stuff. Yeah. Who are you? You know, and we all go through that. Not just even us as believers. Absolutely. We have those phases. So I just want people to walk away that he's your friend.
And sometimes evil men silence those who speak the truth.
What is truth?
This is not the end. It's the beginning.
If you are watching this broadcast here in the United States, go and watch the movie. Light of the World is now in theaters. You can also learn more about the movie by going to lightoftheworld.com. Coming up, a special exhibit connecting sports with the Bible. We will explain right after this. Recently, the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., along with NBA star Jonathan Isaac, presented a new sports-related display. The exhibition features a signed pair of Isaac's Judah 1 shoes. It's the first ever signature shoe to display a visible Bible verse. The shoes are a part of Isaac's faith-based brand called Unitas. During the event, the Orlando Magic star reflected on how God used the brand to open doors and inspire people to live out their faith more boldly. He also says what you do for Christ will last a long time. Folks, that is it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Thank you so much for joining us. From all of us here, from the headquarters of the Christian Broadcasting Network in Virginia Beach, Virginia, have a fantastic day and a great weekend as always. Goodbye, and God bless you.